illuminated the area to daylight brightness, despite the setting sun. Officer Thornton neared the door, and the overhead lights glistened on his shaved, tan head. He reached the building's front door and grabbed the handle. It was locked. A man stood nearby, smoking a cigarette and watching the officer jerk on the door. "Do you live here?" Thornton asked. "Yeah. Do you want in?" The man took a card from his pants pocket and swiped it across a magnetic eye. The lock beeped, and Thornton took hold of the handle, but the sound of another car screeching to the curb made him turn around. Two other policemen, Officers Zane Murray and Ray Rojas, dashed from their vehicle and ran toward him. Thornton grabbed a nearby flower pot to prop open the door and went over to the other officers. "I just got a call that someone heard shots coming from inside one of these lofts," Officer Murray told Thornton. "I called," Mary Jean said, then repeated the story she had told the traffic officer. Officer Murray snapped on his radio mic. "Get an ambulance over here," he told the dispatcher, shouting over the traffic noise on Central Expressway, the elevated thoroughfare that divided downtown Dallas from Deep Ellum. "We have reason to believe the kids have been injured." The three policemen ran inside, leaving Mary Jean alone on the sidewalk. She crossed her arms over her shaking body and paced back and forth. Everything was playing out in slow motion. "This is what you hear about happening to other people," she thought as her stomach continued churning. The massive downtown buildings towered over her, and their interior lights began to flicker alive as the sky darkened. Mary Jean grabbed her cell phone and punched in a number for Melissa Lauder, the friend she had been visiting when she last talked with her daughters. Melissa picked up on the first ring. "Melissa, the police are finally here," she said in a shaky voice. "They've gone inside." "I can get someone to take care of my kids," Melissa said. "Do you want me to come down?" "Oh, yes, please, please. I really need you." Mary Jean clicked off her phone and looked around the empty street. The last orange streaks of the sunset had left the sky, darkening her world all the more. The officers ran into the lobby. Thornton passed an abstract, 4-story yellow and orange sculpture in the core of the lobby and headed for the elevator while the other two officers ran to the stairs. They believed that Battaglia was inside, and they were prepared. The elevator crawled to the 4th floor, and Thornton's tension climbed with it. It jolted to a stop, and the door slid open. At the same time, the other two officers reached the 4th floor, panting. The three hurried along the hall, their rubber soles thudding on the concrete floor. When they arrived at Battaglia's door, they knocked and stepped to the side. The man could be inside with a gun trained on them. When there was no response, they tried to open the heavy commercial door. They weren't surprised to find it locked. They knew what they had to do next and were well aware of the risk they were taking. Because they suspected that someone was injured, they could legally enter the loft without a warrant. But once they kicked the door open, they'd be at risk from whoever was on the other side. They didn't hesitate. Murray, who stood 6 feet tall and weighed 220 pounds, told the other two officers to stand back. Rojas and Murray drew their service revolvers. Thornton's pistol was holstered, but he had already switched off the safety of his shotgun. Murray eyed the place on the door right by the lock, its weakest point. The burly, barrel-chested officer took a couple of steps backward, and with adrenaline pumping, powerfully kicked the door with his black leather boot. The entire wall shook, but the door remained closed. Murray sucked in another breath and rushed at it a second time. As his boot made contact, the wooden door jamb cracked and splintered around the lock. The instant the door slammed open, the officers tore inside, hollering, "Police!" with their guns pointed in 3 different directions. The lights were off in the apartment, but the afterglow from the setting sun glimmered through 3 huge multi-paned windows, casting broken shadows across the room. Their eyes swept the cavernous loft that was still hazy with gun smoke. Then they froze. Even for experienced officers, the sight of a little barefoot girl lying on her stomach only 12 feet from the door was shocking. Her arms were stretched out toward them. She had obviously been trying to reach the door. She had to have known what was happening in the last few moments of her life. The child's hair haloed around her head just as she had fallen, and blood puddled on the cold, brown-painted concrete in a 2-foot diameter circle. A piece of copper bullet jacket